Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming to Google New York for part of our Tech Talk series. We're very excited to have you. Just a couple of housekeeping items while we get started. As you can see tonight's agenda, I'll be handing it over to Dave, and then we're going to have the JamBoard team presenting. Just a few things in advance. Restrooms, if you go out that back door, there's restrooms for everybody there. Just follow the signs. Wi-Fi is Google Guest. There's no password. You can just hop right on. Most importantly, no recording and no photos, please. We will be recording. We'll take care of it, and we'll be posting it, so we've got it covered. But now I will hand it over to Dave Mandelbaum, who is an engineering director here at Google New York.
Thank you, Allison. Welcome, everyone. We're thrilled to have you here for another edition of our Tech Talk series. We've been doing this for 7 years, opening our doors to New York technologists to show you what a slice of life is like here at Google NYC. So tonight, we're showcasing some of the amazing work going on in New York. The JamBoard team is going to come up in a minute to talk about how they built a very exciting new product that they debuted at the Cloud Next conference last month. I'm a director here, as Allison said. I work in corporate engineering. I've been here at Google for 6 years. Before that, I worked at several companies in New York, big and small. Most recently, I was at BarnesandNoble.com. I was a tech lead for the Nook e-reader project. That was in this same building, so I've been having the same commute for 10 years. My team is responsible here for all of our custom HR tools, hiring, learning, compensation, performance management, as well as many of our internal mobile and collaboration tools. For some of this work, we partner with the apps and the cloud teams to develop tools for Googlers and our enterprise customers. That's how we came to work with JamBoard. So JamBoard is a product that has huge implications for how Googlers and our enterprise customers work. CorpEng's mission is to empower Googlers with world-leading technology, and with JamBoard and our other apps and cloud products, we work to do that for external enterprises as well. So I really enjoy working in CorpEng. Our customers are my fellow Googlers, who are both the smartest and the most demanding users you can imagine, but also some of the most appreciative and helpful. The systems we build in CorpEng are smaller scale than something like Search or Gmail, so our engineers get to own large end-to-end pieces of the system and shape the solutions. At the same time, the problems are challenging and in many cases have more complex interfaces than our consumer offerings do. So Google has become a very large company, but the New York office still retains a tight-knit community and many aspects of a small company. We do amazing, varied work here across many of the different product lines at Google. Besides apps and cloud, we have search and ads and maps and YouTube and many more. So I hope you leave today with a better understanding of the kinds of work we do at Google NYC. There's a lot going on. We hope you enjoy hearing about it tonight. And with that, let's bring up the JamBoard team.
Hey everybody, welcome to this meetup, and my name is TJ Varghese. I'm a senior product manager on the JamBoard team. And
Hi, my name is Lucy Bourne. I'm a program manager for JamBoard. This sounds promising. Hi, my name's Lucy Bourne, and I'm a program manager for JamBoard.
so welcome. We're really excited to have you guys here. One thing to note about JamBoard is this is a product that we designed here in New York City, so we're really, really proud of that. I'm going to start off with a video to give you an idea of what JamBoard is. All right, sorry, I need to, okay, here we go. So we at Google, we love technology, and we know you guys do too, which is one of the reasons why you're here. If you think about it, technology is so cool and is really changing the way we live our lives, and it helps us better our lives. Take, for example, I live in Midtown, and I could like literally pull out my phone and change the thermostat in my house because it's getting warmer today. And so these are the kinds of things that I think we all get excited about. And to that point, we want that same kind of benefit and transformation at work. And that's what our teams work on collectively. So Google Innovation is all about the enterprise collaboration. Google itself has, I think Nick and Eva will come on later to tell you about like how many conference rooms we have and how Googlers interact with other Googlers across the globe. And so this is a problem that we deal with on an everyday basis. And so part of our approach and innovation here is thinking about being very thoughtful about not just developing and innovating in technology, but thinking about how it actually helps our lives get better. And this quote from David Sachs of The Revenge of the Analog is something that I like a lot because it really talks about being thoughtful and thinking through what exactly are you trying to accomplish. So we have a lot of meetings here. We do a lot of video conferencing, and we felt like we could do something better. And part of meetings is not just having a meeting to discuss things. It's really about expressing ideas and communicating with others. And we do that well here at Google. If you walk around the conference rooms here, you'll see video conferencing in almost every meeting room or every phone room. But there's one element that's missing, and the fact that people need to express themselves freely. And this is inherent to our normal being. A lot of times, that's what draws people to start writing or communicating with some kind of text. So consider the whiteboard, as mundane and as ordinary as it is. The one benefit of the whiteboard is it gives you a blank space, so you're able to fill it with anything that comes to your mind. And a lot of times when you're trying to solve problems or communicate ideas or even just express yourself, you often find yourself walking to a whiteboard and picking up a marker and expressing yourself really quickly. But technology is limited, right? So the whiteboard is limited to the room. Once you erase it, it's gone. How many times have you pulled out a phone and taken photos of whiteboards? I think if I did a poll, I'm sure almost every hand here will go up. And this is a problem, right? We wanted to figure out how do we solve that problem. And so we looked at solutions that exist in the marketplace today. And one of the problems is, the form factor itself, it didn't feel intuitive. There are products out there that, just look like a black box. It's a display. Sometimes people aren't sure, is it a touch display, isn't it? They're really expensive and they're really hard to use. And so we wanted to solve that problem. So the ideal, thoughtful process of solving this was, can we create a product that was inspiring enough for your ability to get your ideas out of your head very quickly, very fast, just like you do on a normal whiteboard, but thinking through all of the advantages of digital technology, right? Whether it be the ability to continue your work, save your work, and of course, making it assistive in every way possible. And so that's why we built JamBoard. We took a very design-centric approach to building this product. Like I said, we didn't necessarily want it to just be a product for the sake of innovation. We had this philosophy that if you could do it faster on a whiteboard, but you couldn't do it fast on a digital screen, then we failed. And so that was one of our guiding principles on this, where we wanted to be able to walk up to a room and without going through home screens or anything, but just tap on the screen and just start drawing, you can, just like a whiteboard. We also wanted to make sure that, if you drew something and you made a mistake, you can just use your finger and erase it. And so these are all kinds of user journeys that we took a lot of time thinking about, which was really, really challenging from a technology perspective. And finally, we wanted it to be creative. These are where your biggest ideas come to life. These are where you solve problems. And so we wanted it to feel inspirational at the same time, feel less like an electronic piece of equipment and more like furniture, which is what speaks to the design itself. Now, once we got the basics right, we were like, we're not going to stop there. We're Google. So we want to bring all of the intelligence that we can think of to the whiteboard, whether it be features like the handwriting recognition tool, where you can write and it will auto-convert, or grabbing content from the web easily. And of course, many other features that I'm sure you've seen outside, and feel free to come afterwards and talk to us about that. So JamBoard opens up a lot of possibilities. You guys have seen and been using Google Docs, Sheets, Slides, and Google Drive. All of the collaborative tools that we have today, what JamBoard does is it brings that real-time collaboration upstream into your thought process so that you can start with your idea here and continue on with the other tools that we have. So just taking a step back, part of this talk was to give you an idea of like how we work here at Google and how we do things. So this was our mission from a very, very long time ago. I want to say about 4 years ago. We wanted to really think about how to solve creating and thinking and collaborating and improve that process on modern devices. What you're seeing here is a photograph of the first genesis of JamBoard. So myself and another engineer got together in a hackathon 4 years ago. I think it's 4 years ago this week, actually, to be precise. And this was part of a hackathon, and we started to build a tablet collaborative app that was a drawing tool. And when you build stuff at Google, and eventually that product that we did in the hackathon became what we call a 20% project, where we spend 20% of our time working on things that we want to do ourselves individually. That eventually evolved into what we do here at Google, which is a practice called dog fooding. So anytime we build a product, in order to test the product to make sure that it has legs and is warranted and has users, we test it here at Google. And a big part of that is the dog fooding process. And the second half of this talk, Eva and Nick here are going to come in and talk to you more about that. So while we were dog fooding that app, we realized that we needed to get into hardware and actually figure out how to put this on a large touchscreen. So you're seeing some screens here of us, some photos of us literally coming up with design concepts and working with folks to come up with a model. And what you see here on the right side is an actual non-functioning model of what a JamBoard could have looked like. And that happened 2 years ago. So as we were designing hardware and thinking about what that's going to look like, we were developing this tablet app, and we wanted to dog food. And meanwhile, like Dave mentioned earlier, we're part of the G Suite team and part of the cloud team, and there's a CorpEng team. CorpEng does everything here at Google. Meanwhile, we met a team, and it's Nick and Eva. They were working at Google on video conferencing and how to better meetings at Google. And so we met that team, and that's how we joined forces to effectively bring this dog food into Google. So this is one of the early prototypes that we built. And this is what we brought to Google and started testing in multiple offices. And we'll talk more about that. So while we were testing this prototype, myself and a few other engineers, we flew to Asia, and we met with a bunch of different manufacturers, and we started this process of really designing the JamBoard that you see here. And this was a very long process that took several months. And this is my favorite picture. What you don't see here is the panoramic picture. There's actually, I think, 15 whiteboards that go around in a circle. And we have engineers from different disciplines and different industries thinking about how we're going to actually manufacture this. And I love this because we're all designing a whiteboard. And after a while, I was like, wait, this is wrong. Why are we designing this on a regular whiteboard? So we rolled in the prototype on the last day to say, can you please design this on our prototype so that we can, test the stuff that we're making and prototyping. So that's what you see here. This has been, a lot of people ask me, what is it like to work on a product that involves hardware and you're trying to launch something? I put up this slide to explain what that is. It's basically multiple time zones in every single day, and it also overlaps with Fridays and Sundays. So it's a lot of meetings, a lot of time zones, a lot of caffeine, a lot of coffee, a lot of planes, and a lot of frustration, a lot of money, and more meetings. So that just summarized what the last 3 years of my life has been. Here's a fun fact. The JamBoard has over 5,500 total components. There's over 200 suppliers that actually make up a JamBoard. There were over 200 engineers that worked on this. I did over 50 trips to Asia. I was involved or witnessed 8 large earthquakes and 4 super typhoons, believe it or not. So this is our final product. We're really proud that after so many years we got to develop this, and we announced this at Cloud Next. I'm going to hand it over to Lucy now to talk a little bit about how we got our products ready for market.
So as you can see, it was a journey to get this product to a place where we were ready to have end users start interacting with it. But once the product was ready and we had the first prototype, we actually, in parallel, led 2 different testing streams. And I did this in partnership with Eva, and she's going to deep dive into the dog food side of it in a moment. But I just wanted to expand on why we did that and what that helped us learn as a team. So if you think about the internal deployment to Google, our dog food program, that was essentially many devices at one organization. So what did that kind of teach us, or what did we learn from that? Well, in thinking about how we had these devices deployed, it really helped us understand what are the key use cases. So when teams have access to many boards, what types of functions or disciplines seem to kind of gravitate to using a product like JamBoard? What are some of the fleet management considerations within a single domain or organization that we need to understand? And we learned a lot around, mass deployment and overall supportability of the product. On the other side, we also ran an early adopter program for North American G Suite customers. So we had a small number of devices at many different companies and organizations. And really what that helped us to understand is what are the different use cases across different types of industries? So obviously at Google, we have a really tech-centric approach, but having these JamBoards set up at design, manufacturing, architecture, a whole range of different disciplines and organizations really helped us to understand, what are some of the workflows and journeys that folks are using on JamBoard that maybe we haven't discovered at Google. We also learned a lot about the external enterprise environments. So thinking about how these boards are deployed, there's a huge amount of logistics that we learned about in shipping, setup, on-site tech support visits, and how that worked externally for different enterprise customers. And we were actually able to incorporate several really big feature requests that we, kind of worked through as part of our program and got feedback on that will be included as part of the general availability version of JamBoard, which is pretty cool. In addition to that, I would just say there was obviously a really strong partnership with us and all of our customers. So just learning about what is the user journey for folks that haven't used a JamBoard before, what are the commonly asked questions, what's the onboarding material that needs to be provided. So just thinking about all of the peripheral information and support needed around deployment of these devices as well. And as you can see, we have a few of the customers listed, but we have many more than that, and we're really fortunate to have a high level of engagement throughout our early adopter program, which unfortunately will be coming to a close in mid-May this year.
All right, I think we're going to invite Eva and Nick up for the next sections.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much, TJ. Thanks, Lucy. Hi, everybody. I'm Eva Bacon. I'm a program manager on the JamBoard team, but working in CorpEng as well.
And my name's Nick Miceli. I'm a software engineer and a tech lead on the CorpEng side of JamBoard.
Cool. And now we'll take the collaboration aspect to a meta level and talk a little bit about how we at CorpEng joined the JamBoard product team to collaborate on the future of collaboration. Sorry. I think I need that one. Yeah. Awesome. Dave mentioned that earlier. At CorpEng, our motto is, and the big slogan is, to empower Googlers with world-leading technology. That is our mission and our privilege. And that means we are responsible for building, implementing, and supporting all of Google's internal tools and systems. There are quite a few of us in CorpEng. 1,750 Googlers across many, many sites. So remote collaboration is something that we experience in our day-to-day quite a bit as well. And to deserve the attribute world-leading, the world-leading technology, we do a lot of innovating too. A good example of this is our video conferencing system, which we rolled out at scale in 2011, which is quite a while ago. And that definitely changed the way we do work. To be able to easily meet and collaborate with colleagues, regardless of whether they sit 10 feet away from you or in another office across the globe, is nothing short of game-changing. And while it's still not the same as meeting face-to-face, Google video conferencing was a quantum leap for collaboration. And a quantum leap that we hope to replicate with the JamBoard as well, and giving Googlers the free-form capabilities and adding that to the video conferencing experience. As Googlers, we push ourselves to challenge the status quo and solve complex problems. Google is not just known for what we do, but also how we do things. This does not just pertain to technology. TJ mentioned earlier the 20% time. You come up with a new idea, you spend 20% of your time on it. Obviously, the free food, the campuses, we all know a little bit about it. Laszlo Bock wrote a great book about it, Work Rules, in case you haven't read it. It's a good one. So let's reinvent the way we do meetings. Seemed like a good, meaty, pardon the bad pun, challenge to, and you can tell how a digital whiteboard would fit into that story. In short, CorpEng is a fascinating spot to be here at Google.
So the story of graffiti actually begins for me when I went away on my honeymoon. I was on a different team. I took a nice break. I came back and was looking at my email, expecting to see a trade of changes that were made. And instead, I saw a whole bunch of conversations around finding a new team. Turns out the team I was on was deprioritized, and as one of the nice perks of being here, when that happens, you always still have a home, you find a new team to work on. So I was approached by a director, an eng lead at CorpEng, and they said, hey, here's a new project that we want to spin up, and we think we've got this great GVC, right, this video conferencing solution, but still we have this problem of if you're in a remote office, if you're in a remote location, and you want to collaborate, you feel like a third world citizen, right? You have to point a camera at a whiteboard and hope that you can join the conversation that way. What if we change the way whiteboarding works at Google? And as TJ mentioned, the JamBoard team started up similarly with the same challenge. And we said, let's not solve this problem twice. Let's join forces. Let's make this happen once. And let's make sure that this product works really well, not only for enterprises, but also at Google. So that's what our team does here, is we make sure that the use cases and value that Google needs most out of JamBoard, we get to champion those things.
We mentioned already the term dog fooding, or eating your own dog food. It describes a company testing their products on themselves. It's a practice we take very seriously here at Google. Googlers are very critical, but constructive testers. As Lucy mentioned, we've done quite a bit of dog fooding here with the JamBoard. We're about a year into the dog food, and some of the things we've learned. You've seen the prototypes on the screen, and they had some limitations. Latency was a big one of them. Every team I talked to, every team that tried the JamBoard said, oh, I love the idea. I really want to make it work. But man, the latency, it just takes a while for the stroke to catch up with what you're drawing, and by the time you've lost your train of thought. So we knew that was something we had to solve before we could bring this to market. And we did. If you've tried it, it's pretty seamless, and none of the recent additions to our dog fooding program, none of the teams that have come on recently have bring it up. So that's good. But despite the latency and despite some of the things, teams kept using them, and that sent the message to us like we were onto something. And of course, the big goal is remote collaboration. But despite that, even small improvements, like one side of the call being able to present their whiteboard to a Hangout, can bring big value to our users. Being able to show your architecture sketch to your colleague in California, that suddenly shows really what you're talking about. The person on the other end is just a little less left out. And nobody has to point cameras at whiteboards. Another example, sending a PDF of the results of your design sprint without having to retype everything. That can save you hours. That said, not everybody's a whiteboarder, and that's okay. It's a specific mode of communication, not simply a medium. I mentioned that Googlers are a critical test group. There are some things like, for example, the Drive integration, being able to bring in your digital assets. That originally was further along the roadmap. But then our EAP customers and dog fooders let us know loud and clear this was non-negotiable. They needed this sooner rather than later. And so we added it, we prioritized it, and it was moved up. Now, dog fooding isn't anything CorpEng specific. But one thing we bring to the table is that we don't just think about this. We think about this. A JamBoard in its natural habitat, in a meeting room, in a team huddle, or an open area. We get to study it in a big enterprise context that we are very intimately familiar with, Google. So how does it interact with the other equipment in its surroundings? Where in a room should it stand or be wall-mounted? How can we make sure it's easy to deploy and support? On these questions, we worked with a number of fantastic partners in CorpEng, outside of CorpEng. We have a fantastic support team that was involved from day one because they're going to be the ones supporting it down the road. The architects, the real estate team, AV engineering, and our friends working on Hangouts, Meet, Google video conferencing, and Chromebox for meetings. There are a lot of people involved in this. So at the heart of dog food is the feedback loop with our users, with our reference customers. If you're familiar with the lean startup principles or Marty Kagan's methodology, this will all sound very familiar. Some of the things we got feedback on, obviously the features. Latency is something I already mentioned, but also, is 5 colors enough? Use cases. We ask our dog fooders, we ask our EAP customers, what do you use it for? How does it fit into your workflow? On the hardware, software, support side, what breaks? I said we're going to be, as CorpEng, we're going to be the ones supporting them, so we have a vested interest in surfacing issues at their root causes. On the deployment side, how easy is it to assemble and to provision? And what tools do we need to support it? Fleet management, again, is something we do in CorpEng, and Nick is going to tell us some more about it.
So on the engineering team, one of the first big problems that we came to look at was fleet management. So just something that we learned from rolling out GVCs, tens of thousands of them across Google, we've quickly found that as the size of a fleet grows, the cost and difficulty in maintaining it increases dramatically. When we had 5 JamBoards prototypes out there, if one ran into a problem, it's not a big deal to ask somebody in that office, hey, can you run up with a laptop and plug it in and pull some logs off of it, right? But as soon as you roll up to 20 devices, 50 devices, 100 devices, 1,000, even just saying something as, can you reboot the device, becomes unmaintainable, right? So we really needed to make sure, because we know that there's going to be lots of customers who we hope will have many of them, but Google's going to be the first of these large fleets. So we're going to face that challenge early. So here in CorpEng, we want to make sure that we reduce the cost of our partners who have to support this, but also build these things in a way that other customers, that enterprise partners, when they get it, benefit from those same things, because they're going to face the same challenges that we do. And if our support team finds it a frustrating burden to maintain a fleet of these, then we've done something wrong, and we know that external customers are going to feel the same way, right? Because we have people who are highly trained in managing fleets. So we need to make sure that we are succeeding in all levels internally. So what does that mean? That means the first time setup. Is it foolproof? Is it easy? When you unbox this thing, is it intuitive how to get it set up? You don't need to read a manual, right? It should just be 1, 2, 3, get it going, and move on. How about detecting issues? Specifically, should you have to have a human involved? Can we have machines automatically detect if there's problems with this board and take the steps needed to fix it? Completely remove the need to send a technician down to look at the hardware. So auto-fixing. And then doing data analysis. We at Google love data, right? That's one of our mottos. So what data can we pull off of this thing? TJ mentioned the number of components on here. What data can we look into? Can we surface? Can we make intelligence out of? And so that's been a big area that we first jumped into and took a look into. But one of the coolest things that I found about working in corporate engineering is our ability to do feature innovation, right? So if a feature completely fails and bombs and it's just either it wasn't built right or it wasn't the right feature or it doesn't make sense to the user, if it's only Googlers that saw it, there's no problem, right? Googlers expect to see our own technology in a very, very prototypey state. We expect to see things fail. We expect to see things not working, and they'll let us know. But there's no problem of having to deal with user data, user trust, the first impressions, right? So that gives us an opportunity to do incredible innovation and iteration, to fail quickly, to try out crazy ideas. And we can learn from that. And we can make sure that all of that churn we can get through internally first, so that by the time a user sees it, you've missed all of that, and you just see a polished, easy-to-use experience. So a few cool things that we've innovated on, you can actually see here, we've got, this is not part of the standard JamBoard. This is a USB badge reader that we've added to it, because our badges are attached to all of us literally at the hip all day long. So we said, what if when you want to save your content, you didn't have to type in an email address, you could just tap it with a badge. And that's something we're still experimenting with, and we're understanding what are the implications of that. What does that mean in an enterprise setting? What is the security implications? We played around with a lot of questions I got talking to you guys outside was, could we put my own credentials on this board? What are the credentials on it? We said, well, what would that mean? And we found in that case, there was a lot of security implications there. This is a public device that's just sitting out in your office. Guests can walk by. Do you really want to leave it like it's like leaving your computer without locking the screen logged in, right? So this is sort of things that we can test out and try internally. And we've got other features that we want to play around with. Keeping documents synchronized between Jamboards in a meeting. We tried this out. We found the user experience was unintuitive. Great. Let's keep iterating. Let's keep playing until Googlers come and say, oh, now this makes sense. Now it's ready for us to show it to the outside world. So one thing I wanted to dive in on that I thought was pretty cool was video conferencing integration. So Eva mentioned we have a fleet of our Google video conferencing units throughout Google. We also sell a version of that externally for video conferencing called Chromebox for Meetings, or CFM. And this is what you see up on the top there. That's our CFM, one of the versions of it that you can use to basically join a hangout and meet with people in other offices. So if you've got Chromebox for Meetings in your room and you've got Jamboards in your room, these are both Google products, they should just work together. But this feature actually started as something that we built internally. So we started off with a prototype that only worked with Google video conferencing systems. And we basically built it over Bluetooth. So we figure we have two devices, hardware device in the room, they should talk to each other. So we built a Bluetooth channel. And the way it worked is when you started a meeting on your GVC unit, a little prompt pops up on the Jamboard and says, hey, would you like to present to this meeting? I hit check mark, and immediately it's presenting to that meeting, so that if you're working from home or from a remote office, you can still follow along the meeting and see what's happening on the whiteboard, even though you don't have a Jamboard, right? It's a participant in the meeting. And this saves you the time of having to go and type in the name of the meeting manually, which we thought was a very cool use case. So we built this, we gave it to users, and they said, wow, this is a magic moment when it works. Turns out Bluetooth is not really meant for this 24/7 communication channel between two devices. It was kind of rough, it was kind of spotty. And like Eva mentioned with the latency though, we found despite the fact that every time we used it, we weren't sure if it was going to be a hit or a miss, people kept using it. They used it despite that. They were willing to end their meeting and join it again just in the hopes of that prompt starting. So that tells us something. That tells us this is a real use case, a valuable use case. We just need to make it work. So we decided we were going to iterate on it and rebuild it a little more intelligently. But when that happened, TJ came up to me and he said, Nick, this is a great feature. We want to give it to our customers. There's no reason why this should be a Google-only feature, right? We have external customers who have Chromebox for meeting devices. They want that same magic feature. And that was that moment where we go, yeah, there's no reason we should build this once just for Googlers. This is something we should build once that serves everybody. So when we iterated on it and we ported it over, we designed it in a way that it worked across the platforms, that it worked for GVC and the external product Chromebox for Meetings, that it works for the current version of Hangouts and the new iteration that was just announced at Cloud Next. And we built it on top of a bunch of cloud technologies. If there are any people engineering in the room, I recommend playing with some of these. Google Cloud PubSub and Firebase Cloud Messaging are what we built this feature on top of. And so now that we leverage the power of the cloud, we didn't have to worry about a physical radio in the device keeping a communication channel over with Bluetooth. So we have this really nice seamless reliability and quick, just as soon as you start that meeting, you get that prompt. But again, what was great was we built this, we launched it internally, we tested out this new stack, this new tech flow, and as soon as we saw it was reliable, we got to give it to our EAP customers and let external users play with it and try it. So I thought this was a very cool example of an opportunity where in CorpEng, though our mission is to build things for Googlers, we got to iterate and try and imagine and play, and it ended up creating a feature that was actually shown at the Google Cloud Next keynote. So at our slice of time on the stage showing off to hundreds of thousands of people worldwide, this feature got to get shown off, something that was born here in corporate engineering. So that was, I think, very exciting for our team.
Now, not to be a downer, but collaboration isn't easy. There have certainly been times when we were asking ourselves, why again are we doing this? Joining two orgs? Is this really worth it? As you collaborate with more parties, the need for communication increases, and both sides have to relinquish a bit of control. Actually, a fun study on that topic. In 2010, Catherine Phillips at Northwestern University published a paper on diversity in teams, showing then when there were more diverse opinions present in the teams, they became less confident in their results compared with homogeneous teams who were all drinking the same Kool-Aid. And B, diverse teams delivered far better results because more points of view and dissenting opinions were heard and considered earlier.
And we think getting two teams to share resources and collaborate is an awesome example of this. It's an opportunity where we had different voices, different opinions, maybe different things that we wanted to prioritize, different mission statements. But by bringing all those voices into the room, yes, there's discomfort. There's the sense of, well, now neither of us are sure if we're doing the right thing. But from that is born a better product. Because when you have that layer of trust and then challenge and debate and communication and conversation, you end up with more thought, more challenging, more opinions, and that ultimately results in a better product.
And we truly appreciate the good, constructive discussions we've had with the team. And to tie it all back together, this is exactly the kind of magic we hope to enable with the JamBoards, the collaboration. I think that was TJ's slide, but I don't know if you guys want to join, but that is certainly true. It takes a village to build JamBoards and many other things.
Cool. Yeah, and if you guys want to learn more, you can go to google.com/Jamboard on the actual product and when it'll be available, et cetera, et cetera. All right.
Awesome.
So I guess we'll start taking questions. I think there are 2 microphones here. So if you want to walk up to the microphones, we'll take your questions.
Have a few more. Another mic up there.
Hi, I'm Max Renee. I'm curious, how did you solve latency?
That was a very, very hard engineering problem on multiple fronts. Fun fact, one of the reasons why G Suite, which is primarily apps, decided to get into hardware is because we were trying to solve the software use case of whiteboarding on a digital screen. And like I mentioned, when we looked at all the technologies that were out there, we found a couple of problems. One of them being it was very expensive to buy one of these screens, and then two, the performance lacked, and then three, it was just the whole software stack. So that's what actually prompted us to get into this. The latency was solved on a couple of different fronts. It had to do with us actually redesigning and creating our own video scaler with a manufacturer. And we called it a zero latency scaler. So we're just passing bits directly to the display. That combined with the touch technology that we're using, which is very unique. This is a very unique touch technology. One of the features that we have here on the JamBoard is 4K, 60 hertz, 1 millimeter accuracy with a passive stylus. So there's no batteries or Bluetooth or any kind of EMR. It's just a passive stylus. So getting that kind of speed and accuracy down with our touch stack was a completely, that was like years of development. And the other way we solved it was owning the entire product, everything from the silicon up to the, through the software down to where you touch the screen. So we were able to make software trade-offs, hardware trade-offs, and effectively bringing that latency down. Anyone who's tried to attempt this, getting touch to work at that speed and that accuracy without, active stylus is a huge feat as you go per square inch bigger. And so that's how we did it.
Hi, my name is James. It's the other side of the latency coin. I'm really fascinated by the bandwidth question here because you have a lot of media on there and I only see one cord. So that means it's not wired. So how did you manage the bandwidth problem, especially as you scale across enterprises that may not have the same kind of connectivity that you have here, and that may have, say, not necessarily a Wi-Fi N network, but may have G or B? So if you can talk to a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. So actually one of the design inspirations was to keep this very simple single wire mobility on wheels, which in itself is a huge engineering challenge. I won't get into that. But we actually do have Ethernet built into here at the back of the device. And that is exactly what we tell enterprises who, like you mentioned, don't have very strong Wi-Fi, either because they don't have that available or for security reasons, they prefer to wire it. So there is that option in the back of the device to plug in Ethernet.
Am I allowed to? Yeah. So but the question about how it works over Wi-Fi, is there some dynamic scaling that goes on? Like, for example, in Hangouts, when your bandwidth sort of starts to drop, you obviously use the JPEG compression, but you don't have JPEG compression here. You have user input. You have other types of media. So I'm just curious about because there's obviously some algorithms and something going on back there. But
there are two things that happen. Do you want to talk?
No, go ahead. So I was just going to mention that we do actually have internally at Google a bunch of different Wi-Fi networks of different qualities, so we can test what it looks like on different networks. And so the content on the board, there's different types of content. There's everything from media that is actually an image to the strokes, and we make sure that this is all done. Each piece is done asynchronously. It's all through the same sort of logic that Google Docs does to keep the real-time collaboration in sync. So even though pieces of data may come at different times, drawing a C is going to come much faster than uploading a new image that you dropped on the board. We have a whole bunch of math and algorithms on the back end that understands what the correct state of the world should look like, and that keeps everybody in sync.
Yeah, that combined with the component we're using, it is an industry standard component for Wi-Fi, so we get a lot of benefits of that component and its drivers.
Cool, thank you.
Hi, I'm Will. I was wondering how far back you take the dog fooding. You might have answered it at the end of the first question. That is, did you start with the Linux distro we know, or Chrome OS, or Android, or did you just say, none of this will do and we have to go our own way?
Just to clarify, did you mean on the app itself, where we started, or trying to figure out what platform we start with?
Yeah, the latter.
We didn't, actually. So part of being, frankly, this just being an idea that sat in a conversation that I had in a micro kitchen and ended up walking to a hackathon. And then the 20% project was initially the engineer that I was working with. We were both on a team that was building Google Drive and Google Docs for iOS platform. So our first prototype, the one that you saw the photo, was actually an iOS product. But interesting question. When we got to building the product and the prototype to a point where we knew we wanted to take this to Google, there was no way we were just going to do that without addressing Android. So we actually worked on an Android iteration of it, and then from there it evolved as we talked to users who either wanted to see something on Chrome or Android or iOS.
On our side, we actually did a whole bunch of prototyping. When on CorpEng, we built a prototype before we joined on JamBoard, and we considered a whole bunch of different options. Do we want to run Linux on this, Chrome, native Android? And we did a whole bunch of different latency trade-offs. And it's one of those things where you're trying to decide between supportability and maintainability and performance, right? So this has been a series of different iterations and benchmark tests to make sure we figured out what was the right magic formula of all those.
Yeah, in the course of 4 years, we probably wrote it 4 times or at least 5 times over.
No, so first off, this is really cool, and especially looking at it, it seems like education is a market where it could be really disruptive. My question was about the screen, and over here, the one thing that I noticed is the glare. Were there any considerations of using a matte screen or having an option for a less glossy in the future?
Yeah, a lot of consideration, a lot of thought, and this is the interesting thing when you're developing products where you have to weigh off trade-offs. The touch technology we're using requires us to use a certain set of glass, and that glass doesn't lend itself to matte screens. And so we are R&Ding on that and continuing to evolve that, and we hope that there'll be an iteration of that, to come. But it got to the point where we knew we had a solution, it was a workable solution, and gets the job done. But you're right, there's a lot to be done and improved. This is one of those things. And in this case, we were limited to, do we go matte screen and go with the conventional technologies, of which then we make trade-offs on performance and cost? Or do we say, we're going to take this other trade-off where it's not the perfect environment, but we bring performance and cost back into realm, and we chose the latter.
I will say also, come play with the one we have outside, right out on that after the talk. When you don't have stage lights directly blaring on it, it's a little more pleasant to look at as well. So.
And hopefully you're not pointing a camera to it.
Hi, my name's Ian. I was wondering what the experience was. I'm not sure if it's something that you can show, I would imagine not, of a remote user who might be on a laptop that's not a touchscreen, and what collaboration they can actually have with a team that's working in a JamBoard session.
Yeah, I didn't bring, so there's a few different platforms that we use to collaborate with JamBoard. You can view the content real-time collaboration from the web. You can view it from your phone. The tablet app is the real full partner on this, that you can do all of the same drawing and editing. But from my phone, I'm connected to the Jam outside. I'll join this one. But from the phone, I can watch real-time, and I can throw up pictures, drive content, and Post-its. The idea being, drawing on this thing is not a pleasant experience, but that way if you're doing like a design sprint or something, everybody can throw Post-it notes to the board, and I can throw personal content to the board from it. So, are you? Let's see. So I'll join and I'll show you. But what's great is I would love if maybe we could bring up the house lights. I'll take a picture of the audience, and we'll throw it on the Jam. You can see it. It comes up pretty quickly, even on Wi-Fi, to answer 2 questions at once.
I would just add to this as well. I think this is a great use case for active collaborators, but what we also often see in sessions that are similar to whiteboarding is passive collaborators. So people that want to follow along and understand what's happening, but may not want to directly add content themselves. So we do have a feature which is integrated with Hangouts and Meet, and that allows for whoever's at the Jamboard to present their content to a Meet code or a Hangout. So folks who are remote can actually follow along on a big screen. That's actually becoming one of our most common user journeys for Jamboard, and is kind of really leveraging the power of G Suite, right, and the full integrations.
And I think to add on to answer your question, you mentioned non-touch devices. What does collaboration look like? We've heard a lot of feedback during both internal and external testing that a lot of folks would like to see a web editor where they can actually interact from a browser and from their desktops. And so that is something we're taking very seriously, and we're looking at it into our roadmap.
Okay, great. Thanks.
On the engineering side, do you guys have remote desktop, and would it be able to be controlled by one administrator but multiple users?
Are you talking about in terms of fleet management or editing a jam?
Fleet management.
Yeah, so that's what our team has been working on, is a full fleet management system. We're still figuring out exactly what administrators want and need, but this is one of those places where testing at Google, where we already have 50, 100, soon 1,000 devices, is going to let us really see what do administrators need to manage this fleet. So does that mean ability to remotely send commands to the board like reboot it? We've built that. The ability to see statistics about the board, like how's the camera functioning, how's the Wi-Fi signal in this room. We're building that. But then there's a world of different things we could build, and we want to make sure we're giving the right features that a fleet manager needs for managing the product. Is that sort of what you're asking?
Yes, but sorry. Would there be more integration with the IT departments that will be able to work on it without you guys being present?
Oh, yeah. So
they're calling you guys, they'll be there to
no,
fix and
absolutely.
solve problems.
So all of these tools are going to be exposed for the IT members of a domain. So if you have a G Suite domain, any of the admins can go and use the same tooling that we use internally to manage your own fleet. And they'll have access to all those same abilities to reboot devices and to see statistical information about the hardware and all of that stuff. So everything that we have for our own admins, we're giving to fleet admins as well.
Yeah, and to be clear, we won't have once you buy this and set this up in your organization, we'll have no access to that.
Yes.
Hi, I work as a director of technology at a K-12 school district and also co-direct a Center for Innovation in our district where we're looking at reinventing schools. I bet you know what my question is going to be. I know you've tested this extensively in the corporate enterprise environment and honoring the quote you said earlier about having diverse teams. I wonder if you've thought about also including K-12 education in your early testing and adoption. Right now, most schools have devices called smart boards, and we're looking to replace them within the next 2 years. And I see an opportunity here for bringing this into the classroom, into instructional spaces, into training spaces. Have you thought about perhaps rolling it out in that space as well?
Yeah, I knew there was going to be at least one question, if not 10, in that space. So you've probably noticed that we've been pretty deliberate when we announced the product that we're focused on enterprise, and I can't tell you enough how many emails of hate I got when people realized that they had to be an enterprise to be an early adopter program. Like the EDU list was intense. We are thinking about it. We want to be really thoughtful about it. Like I mentioned earlier, we want to solve problems, but we want to make sure that we are very thoughtful about it. The way we view this space is there's been a lot of folks who have attempted this space. Many companies have entered with, Smart leading the way with their technologies. And we view Jamboard as a collaboration device. Our focus here was about solving collaboration and meetings, and yes, we do see the similarity. We wanted to be careful and thoughtful about ensuring that we did not set precedent or this assumption that you can replace this with your smartboard, because quite frankly, a lot of the functionality of what's here may not necessarily exist in what's used there. For example, this isn't really a throw something up on the web and point and click and figure out, use it as a teaching tool. The other thing we learned in the education spaces, folks wanted screens that were a lot larger and a lot bigger, and that comes itself with its own set of challenges, both software and hardware. So when we are going to launch this, and you can buy this in May, we're not precluding schools from purchasing them. It's just we're setting the expectation that this is a device that we built for collaboration. We actually think that this is a great tool for staff and faculty, whether it be in the staff room or training rooms like you mentioned, but we don't necessarily see the product as the front of the room teaching product yet. We are going to go into a phase where we start doing this kind of testing with schools to figure out, okay, what are the needs and requirements there, and then shape our product roadmap of how we evolve the product. That's our strategy right now.
Thank you.
Hi, want to ask, do you have any plan to open the platform for third-party application developers? And also, what will be the price range for this product?
Okay, the answer is yes. We do have a roadmap and a plan to open it up for third-party applications. You'll be hearing about that in the coming weeks and months. The price right now for the JamBoard in May is going to be $4,999 for the device, and we have a annual support and subscription fee, which is $600 for the device per year. And we're running a promotion. If you buy the JamBoard before September 30th of this year, that subscription annual price for the first year will be discounted at 50% to $300.
Hey, just want to say thank you for a really thoughtful presentation. My question is more around use cases. Have you guys seen any particularly notable use cases that have come up and really been facilitated by this technology? Not really just core use cases that you built the fundamental product around, but really things that have been new and maybe even unexpected and kind of surprising around the product that have come up because of the technology.
I'm going to throw one out there. I'm sure all of us are probably going to throw some ideas out as we go. One of the most interesting use cases actually connects two of our features together. So the first is Drive integration. So pulling up content you created previously from Drive, whether that's G Suite apps or a PDF or PNG image. What we've found a lot is that JamBoard's actually used as an interactive presentation tool for teams. So just to break down how that would happen, someone would add their content. So say they pushed up a bunch of slides, they'd pull out those individual slides, expand them. Then what they'd do is they'd open up the present feature. So they would present their Jamboard to a Meet or a Hangout. And then they'd start presenting, but rather than having this very kind of two-dimensional, flat slide, they actually annotate over the top of it as they go. They highlight key points. They add ideas. As people, make comments or call-outs, they'll put that in a parking lot that's live on the board. So having this used and seeing the interaction between existing content, the annotation layer, and the ability, as I say, to kind of get passive collaborators really engaged in the content is not something we ourselves as a team came up with as an idea. We actually found our dog fooders initially, and then our early adopter customers led with using these features a lot.
Yeah, I actually nicknamed that feature the CNN effect. So, and frankly, so we had heard a few dog fooders and teams saying, hey, they used it this way, and we were like, oh, that's kind of weird. And then last year we had this executive review where we met with a lot of our senior vice presidents, and we were demonstrating JamBoard. And our director just naturally decided that we were going to do away with slides, and he did the same thing. And I think just the wow factor in the room with a bunch of execs where, we were throwing up a slide, talking about it, moving it around, throwing up another slide, drawing around it. It just was much more engaging and drew the crowd in. And that's something that we've seen really well.
One of the most fun kind of use cases that we totally didn't anticipate are birthday cards and baby shower cards. Due to the fact that you can just pull up a jam, buy a broadcast code, buy a 6-digit broadcast code, lets you just email your team and say hey, we started a greeting card for our colleague. Whenever you have a board, type in the code, add your photo, add your little note, and and then you show it off at the party later. So that actually, I think we've heard 5 instances of that happening. So maybe we should start selling it as a greeting card product.
And I think
Third-party app idea. Just saying.
it really just shows the joy of using it, right? People find reasons and new ways to use it, whether that's part of their traditional workflow or if it's just something fun that they want to celebrate with their team.
So, guys, I think we've come to a wrap. We're still going to be hanging out here, so I know there's a few more folks who had questions. Just come and chat with us.
And
Thank you,
thanks so
guys.
much for coming.
Thank you.
Oh, and we'll be outside. I think there's 30 more minutes of networking, so feel free, go outside, grab a drink.